Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I can't wait to start this conversation.
Yes, me too. I'm so excited to be here.
So can you tell people a little bit about how you got into this Lyme work and psychotherapy? Like what kind of guided you there? And, was it through your own experience? Just give us a little background.
Sure. So I had no intentions of doing micro social work, micro psychotherapy, if you will. I felt I was destined to do disaster mental health work. So I was working with NGOs. I got into Doctors Without Borders, and the last placement I was in Mexico, where I got really sick and I had to cut my contract, come back home. And keep in mind, I've had chronic illnesses since I was pretty young. We're talking infancy, but nothing that really got in the way of my day to day. I mean, I was constantly trying to see specialists to figure out what was happening, but I was still able to work and to go to school and maintain relationships. It was just flustering, if you will. This was until I got really, really sick.
Mm-hmm.
I got home. I was passed around like a hot potato. I could not hold a job. I was just fainting all over the place. I was so unwell. And I finally got put in touch with a rheumatologist who specializes in Lyme disease. And she told me I had Lyme disease. I'd barely even heard about Lyme disease up until that point, peripherally sure, but had not heard of it. So up until this point, it was just a slew of autoimmune diseases and so forth. And when he said that to me, it was both validating and confusing. But it started my journey. And like I said, I couldn't work. I had to move in with my parents. I'm so lucky I even had that as an option. I could barely get across the living room. I felt like a shell of a human at that point. And I could just see how wrecked my mental health was. I was in grief of who I was before this point. I went from doing everything at 200 kilometers per hour to literally zero. And it was beyond frustrating. So I sought psychotherapists to help me as I began to understand the mind-body connection a bit more, because in grad school, at least for me, we weren't taught about this. We weren't taught about the nervous system or anything of that matter. So I was starting at zero with this information to a certain degree. I'm sorry, CBT can't heal the amount of trauma I had endured up until this point, medical and otherwise. So I looked for a chronic illness literate therapist, could not find one, ended up getting connected with one who didn't have lived experience, but worked with those who had chronic illness all the way in London, not London, Ontario, London, UK. And it was marvelous to talk to him. And without having to give him subtitles and explaining what the diagnosis, the symptoms, what I was experiencing day to day, but he also didn't have the lived experience, and I didn't feel like I quite had that connection with him, which is when I decided someone needs to step into this. I'm going to, if and when I feel better, I would like to step into this, because I was in no place to practice at that moment in time. I was really, really ill. So as my path continued and I began to really understand nervous system work, I did neural retraining and was able to widen my window of tolerance and really start irrigating the dis-ease that essentially started this all. I began to feel better and better. I was able to take on more treatments and move and leave my relationship, and it all shifted. There was a positive trajectory that happened, and eventually I was able to start to really officially open up my practice and start taking on clients' patients and basically, holding the light for them on this same.
And I want to go into all your symptoms, what you got over, kind of how you worked through it. But, you said something important, and it was you worked on these underlying things and that made you be able to accept the other treatments that helped to, kind of get you to those next baseline, right? Where then you start feeling a bit better and you start feeling a bit better and you start to be able to take on more. I just think that's an important thing, like the whole holistic effect of this, where there's one piece of the puzzle, then there's the puzzle that are some of the things that we need to help to take these things out of our body. Because I feel like what I'm seeing now is like online is like, you just have to work on this or you just have to work on that. And I think it's like how it has to all come together is like really important. And it's easy if you're at the end of your journey and you're saying, oh, this is the one thing that helped me. But really, it's a puzzle. And this is such an important piece that you're working through. And I think holding space and helping people work through that like component that is so hard to understand and no one understands.
Yes.
It's huge because I didn't even have that. And I went through a similar story, right? Where you're just like, what's happening to my body? Who am I now? Like, how do I reintegrate into what is supposed to be like normal life after what I've just gone through, right? Like what matters, what doesn't matter. So again, I think that's huge. And there aren't many people doing that. And even just watching like the way you talk on some of your posts, like you have that like soothing capacity where you can like, really relate to somebody. So, I mean, I appreciate that so much because I'm more on the side of like the physical body, like what can we get out? And I need someone like you to be that huge pillar that like, helps them to handle the stuff that we're going to kind of put people through. So what were some of your symptoms? Because, people don't understand them. Like you feel terrible. I try to explain, waking up hungover without having a drink, like having a sore organ one day, like a swollen arm the next, like the joint you can't move. Like I had severe, severe anxiety, like jump out of my skin anxiety. I had pain everywhere. I'd get dents inside my head. I was losing my hair. Sometimes I'd have my bowels emptying. Sometimes I couldn't go. Like it was just like, just terrible, terrible, always in pain, always not knowing what the next symptom is going to be. So, just so people can start to relate to even when you said you were younger, but you still got by, that resonated with me because that was me, like little blips. And then I think when everything comes to a close, it's like when every little symptom you've ever had comes together and it kind of takes hold of your body and your body stops winning these like small wars inside every day. So just talk about like, even first, let's start with what were those like little things when you were younger that just weren't right, that you were like, something was always going on.
So like severe IBS,
Yeah.
constipation was a big one. Migraines from the age of 7 years old, severe migraines that would sometimes last for days. Eventually anxiety that turned into a panic disorder. I also had the telltale signs, I was like relatively thin, but I had a lot of stretch marks, which is a telltale sign of Bartonella, cat scratch fever, for those who don't know. And so there were things that just weren't quite making sense. I went from being really thin to totally inflamed almost overnight. Again, didn't make sense. Thyroid was all over the place in my teens. Weird. I had a lot of skin rash issues, like typical mast cell activation syndrome presentation, but no one knew about that. I was fainting a lot since I think I must have been around 12 years old when that started. So the typical dysautonomia, POTS symptoms. Again, no one knew what that was like. My brother passed when I was 19 years old, and that was the only reason I went to the cardiologist, was to find out if I had a similar underlying condition. And that cardiologist was able to actually put me on a tilt table test and diagnose me with POTS. I don't think there were many at that time. It was a very long time. It was almost 20 years ago. So I don't think there were very many cardiologists who even knew what that was. Now more do, not all, but more do. And eventually, like, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. So I stopped eating gluten in my early 20s. But yeah, just so many random symptoms. I think I had close to 70 active symptoms at some point. And we have to remember, Lyme disease in and of itself has over 300 symptoms. many of which are mental health related, and we don't talk about that
I know.
enough. But I mean, it can affect literally every organ, every facet of the mind and the body. And I didn't know what this was, and I didn't. At this point, I'd probably seen at minimum 50 doctors. No one had ever brought up Lyme or co-infections or much of anything else.
Yeah.
So like you said, I would wake up and it would be just a new random symptom, and it was really scary. And like I'd have one arm that was inflamed and the other that was fine. And you get to the point where I forget how many times I went to the ER in 1 year and they never helped me.
No.
They didn't know what was going on. They're not versed in any of this, but it was scary to stay home because here are these symptoms that I really don't know what is happening to me. What is going on?
For me, like in your story resonates, like it's almost identical from the things that you've mentioned. But mine was reactivated like pretty aggressively post like COVID, right? So
Yeah.
I had this reemergence and had to start from square one. And I had already been through, I didn't know it was Lyme necessarily, like, but I thought maybe it was. And it was like 10 years of complete remission. In the healthiest I'd been working out, like I could do 10 pull-ups, like, all of that. And it crushed me like that. And so I had this thing too, like I was taking care of myself, like, why did that happen now? And like, it's not like that wasn't the most stressful time in my life because, during COVID, I think was like very stressful for everyone. So all of those compounding factors, but just like that kind of feeling where I felt like it could, like I tell people I was just hijacked, like that was it. Like,
great way to put it. That is such a great way to put it. It feels like someone has hijacked your body.
Yeah, like something's in there that shouldn't. And then now they've shown how, COVID can dysregulate your immune system and all those things that you've put into remission, but you didn't fully clear from the body. Because again, I was told I had multiple sclerosis. I was still in school as a chiro. It's what shunted me into functional medicine. But just from finding out I had celiac and doing a parasite cleanse, it was enough in my 20s that like my body perked up and I went on. Like I got these things out enough and I changed a lot, 100%. I had, how much self-reflecting this makes you do, or, your body keeps score, kind of telling you when to stop. And I was definitely doing too much both times in my life. But I want to know like how when you work with someone, like are you helping them with eye movements? Like how are you clearing these kind of behaviors or making these changes? Like what kind of techniques do you kind of use to help people get past it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I also, by the way, was triggered with COVID. It went into a complete flare up as well. So first and foremost, someone comes to me with a myriad of any kind of, chronic illnesses. They've often been stuck in some form of fight or flight. And not just fight or flight, fawning, people pleasing, overachieving, doing too much, like you described, overdoing it. So the body finally is just like, no, I can't anymore. You didn't listen to my whispers. You didn't listen to me. So now I'm screaming and things are shutting down so that our bodies are brilliant so that we can reboot and get things back into order, recalibrate. So I see a lot of freeze response and fawning response. So first and foremost, someone comes to me, we need to get back into a flexible nervous system state. So a lot of people come to me, they want to get regulated right away. I want to be in parasympathetic. I want to be out of sympathetic. And I understand that. However, we didn't get here overnight. We're not expecting to also. So before we, as I say, irrigate the dis-ease, I need to ensure that, we were talking about this earlier, the window of tolerance is big enough. So when someone comes to me and they're going, I'm not tolerating supplements, infusions, whatever it is. And I've been there before where my body was just so sensitive and afraid of everything. I mean, I didn't mention this, but I was down to less than 20 ingredients I could safely eat without an EpiPen because of how horrific the mast cell was. I was seemingly allergic to everything. So this snowball effect, because of the fight or flight, really will pick up on so many things and you will be feeling intolerant or allergic to. So we need to get the body into a state of literal safety. And perhaps I was not safe at these moments in time. I am safe now. So we do that through neural retraining. And there's various programs out there, but it's really important whoever I'm working with just chooses one.
Mm-hmm.
There's even some free videos and so forth, but we work on that. And as we work on that, we get into the body.
Mm-hmm.
So often when you're sick, I don't know, this was me. I don't know if this was you at some point, but I was so afraid of my body.
Mm-hmm.
I was so afraid of being in my body because it was a scary place. So we gently get in there. We learn what it feels like to say yes and say no. We step into our authenticity. And as we do somatic and trauma informed work, we learn when and why we went into fight or flight to begin with, likely from childhood. And again, in adolescence, in our teen years, in our work, people have work trauma, familial trauma,
Mm-hmm.
environmental trauma, medical trauma. But the only way out is through. It's being with the discomfort rather than avoiding it. And often we're working so hard because we're afraid of being with the hard feelings. I think the biggest part too is, and I said this myself, like, I just want to go back to who I was before I got sick. And I hear that so often. The thing is, the person who you were before you got sick is part of why you got sick. So we're becoming more of our authentic selves, where there's more of a balance, more of harmony, less fear, more enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
We don't build a window of tolerance just for the trauma. We build it to actually experience and be with our joy and our peace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that resonates a lot too, because again, even though I've gone through it and I consciously know all this, we go back into these like subconscious habits, right? Like we just
all the time.
Yeah. So it's like,
tell me about it.
Work is real. Like, and so
it's constant.
Mm-hmm.
It's constant. It's like, I think it's for myself, at least it will be the rest of my life. It's a pattern I forged for decades. So expecting it to just reverse is kind of silly, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah. And that's even explaining people because, I feel like I was hijacked, but obviously these things, these decisions, these traumas, they all built up and were never properly worked through. And so it feels like it happened right in that moment, but we know, right? So it's explaining to people too, like, even though in some people where it comes on acutely, right? Like, or more so like that there's still like all those layers to kind of work through and tease out, and a lot comes up. So it's definitely hard work going through Lyme and Lyme co-infections and all of the things that get us to where we are, because you can definitely see it's like, was it Hippocrates? It's like, not the person, you're not treating the disease, you're treating the person who has the disease. So it's what are the personality traits that lead us to, it's not the guy that's super chill that's getting Lyme disease. Like, it's not the guy that just like, kind of somehow naturally always lived in his authentic self. It's the more stressed out girl or guy. So anyways, it's interesting when you start looking at it like that. Do you use a supplement or like psilocybin sometimes, or
yeah. I've worked with doctors who have prescribed it.
Yeah.
And so when like microdosing, for example, with folks who've also used larger doses, therapeutic doses. And I myself have also micro and macro dosed, and it has been incredible.
I'm still very interested in that. I think, we talked about being scared of things. And for me, that was one of the things where it's like, I'm intrigued by it and I really want to. And now as I'm more stable and whatever, I think it would be a time that I could, it could help me get to that next level. Like, I find it very interesting. And I know a lot of people that it's helped a lot. So that's definitely something that I think calls a lot of people, because it helps you. It's a tool that kind of can help you get out of that fight or flight too, right? Like that feeling all the time is just like, it's crazy. And, there's a lot of tools that helped me, like, that were my things that soothed me. Like, I would chew GABAs like it was my job, like pharma GABA or a binder. Like, because for me, if you think of like a mast cell reaction when you get that huge release, like if I could soak something up with a binder, like I could get myself. And that's why it started this whole thing. Like, is it anxiety or is it toxicity? Is it anxiety or is it histamine? Is it anxiety or is it, A, B, or C? So
And
yeah.
when mast cell degranulation happens, I mean, it's that serotonin, so it affects how we're feeling. So anxiety is likely to come up, and plus, when we have a symptom, we often feel anxious about it. What is this? What's going on? And that's some of the work too when I'm working with patients and clients of just being with that sensation and that feeling.
Yeah. Now, if I have a heart palp, I'm not going to panic. Like I try and massage my chest and give my heart space and take some like not antihistamines, electrolytes, like all these, all these little tools that have helped me regulate once I go through that. And then obviously working on the bigger, deeper stuff is huge. And I think that because I had a lot of knowledge myself while going through this already, when it turned on again, like I could be like, you're having shooting pain because you do have Bartonella in your body. But you're going to get it. So just don't freak out about, so like kind of like being able to calm my own nervous system down. And then it made me say no to so many things that I didn't want to say no to. My first instinct was to say yes, but you had no choice at this time. So, it has been a hard lesson, but, I am learning from it. And I think that like when I talk to people and I'm trying to, help them with the things that get stuff out of their body, like I need someone like you that's helping them talk through everything when they're in these moments of panic, even working through a supplement, like getting onto a supplement that you need by chemistry, but like your body's not ready to accept it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
like
It sees it as like an enemy, right? I remember having like staring contests with new supplements because I was just so nervous. How am I going to react to this? What's going to happen? And when we've had poor reactions, that's our nervous system trying to protect us. But yeah, it's increasing that window of tolerance and building safety with yourself and therefore with the world step by step.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously since COVID, since all these different things coming at us, new frequencies, like this is an epidemic. Like this is like I historically work with high performing athletes, NHL, NFL, MLB. Like these people, I had never seen these Lyme-like symptoms, now all these heart symptoms, then turning into this severe anxiety. That's like I had never seen it. So maybe like once, and then it became like multiple people on each team, So seeing it in that population kind of like emerge at such a high rate, like, the hijacking or reaching their kind of tipping point, it just shows all the different things coming at us along with the stresses that they were already taking in from being in the media, being in, and then having that certain personality or those certain detox patterns or those certain childhood traumas that they, didn't work through. But are you under the impression, like, do you think we have to uncover every single one in order to like move forward, or like, what's your outlook on?
Yeah, I think we're likely going to see more and more and more of this is my feeling just based on the trajectory. And when I look at just any single person, there is a confluence of different factors that led to this. It could be nutrition, it could be pressure throughout their lives. But you're thinking when we talk about high performing athletes or anyone in the limelight, no pun intended there. But like think of that immense amount of pressure, right? Environment, mold, parasites,
Yeah.
all of it. This is and genetics. Do I think we have to uncover, everything underneath the rock? Probably not. And is there a one size fits all approach? No. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. There isn't one thing that works for for everyone. We have to uncover that. And that's part of the journey, is uncovering that ourselves, working with a provider or providers who we trust, who believe in us and our healing, to try to figure this out for ourselves. So for some people, it's like, oh, it's the mental health piece. For other people, it's the infusion, or it's the supplements, or it was the getting out of the mold. And it could be a little bit of everything, but I believe each person is a bit different from the other. But with that being said, we need to look at things holistically in an integrative way of, what do your relationships look like? What does your house look like? What does your nutrition look like?
Yeah.
How is your stress?
What water are you drinking? Like all
drinking. Yeah. Electrolytes again, like where? Yeah.
Yeah. I know but it's just like, when you really look at it, you're like, how did it get so complicated? Like, I feel like it used to be just a little bit easier. And I just wonder, as technology goes even more and more aggressive, like, we have to adapt even more. And that's when we have to learn even more. And I think, like, we're kind of on the front lines, just trying to piece together what works for most people, at least, or giving them different tools or different options for what works for them, because it's tough being a practitioner in this field too, and trying not to take on when somebody's telling me all their feelings that I had before, and then I'm trying not to go back into that same spiral of feeling it in my own body because I'm an empath, so it's kind of crazy. It's crazy to think about, as AI becomes more powerful, as this becomes, I don't know what it's going to look like, because I was super, like, electrical sensitive when I was really, really sick. I couldn't even hold my phone. It would buzz in my hand and I'd have to, like, throw my phone.
My hands would tingle or sting.
Yeah. And, like, I remember even years before, I was gifted an Apple Watch when they were brand new. Like, yeah, I thought it was the coolest thing. Like, one of the athletes had given it to me, and I was in full remission from whatever, and totally forgotten about what had happened to me. Not forgotten, but you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like and I remember it was just like aching a bit, and I kept having to take it off, and I was like, is it that? Like, I don't know, like, could it be? And then, like, I'm putting it back on and I'm like, ow. Like, so I already felt that when I wasn't having these crazy symptoms that had reemerged, and I wasn't having all, like, the myocarditis and the heart palps and the blood pressure changes and all of that. But then when it all turned back on, and they put on to me a wireless heart monitor, which I knew I shouldn't do, but I was in Las Vegas having these symptoms during COVID, when it wasn't easy to travel back, when no one could travel there to come with me. And I just had never had the heart symptoms before. And when he put that wireless heart monitor on me that went through Bluetooth through a phone, my body was so electric that it short circuited. It short circuited and blew up this heart monitor, that which they still wanted to charge me like tens of thousands of dollars for. Like, that's how my hair was standing on end. Then I felt a psychosis that night when I was wearing it that I can't explain. The vividness of the dreams, the inner fear that I felt, like the impending doom, was, like, honestly something that I could bring me to tears right now trying to explain it to you, feeling that again.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So that's when the electrical piece became so clear to me, right? And things went from bad to worse after that. I believe if I didn't put that on, it wouldn't have opened up the effects that happened to all my other organs, where the liver got damaged, the kidneys got damaged, the, appendix blew up, like, all of this kind of, it was insane. So I kind of dove into all of reading about all of the EMF and electromagnetic frequencies, because my calcium was always elevated. And then when I looked into, like, the work of Martin Powell and all the voltage gated calcium channels, and then when you get this influx of calcium, how anxiety driving that is. And then there's damage to the cells, and calcium leaks out and things calcify around it. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got to stay away from these things as much as I can, and started thinking about hardwiring parts of my house. And, all of this kind of stuff became more important, and grounding and coming up north, right? Luckily, I could do that. But, when we think of our nervous system, and it's running on calcium, and it's running on magnesium, and it's running on sodium, and it's running on these minerals, like, these things have to be looked at when people are having these crazy symptoms as well, and regulated, and the cell membrane gets damaged, and obviously our body has the capacity to heal. And that's what you're helping people see, because I always want to give people all these things because they help me. And then there's like the whole work of, Joe Dispenza, who's like, you don't need to take a single thing because your body can make every chemical that it needs to heal. But sometimes it's not, you're not there, right? And you need multiple.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like for example, I did so much nervous system work, and then I was still in a home with mold and had plateaued,
Yeah.
right? So I still needed to get out of my environment and detox.
Yeah.
It's both, and I'm not saying that it's not in the realm of possibilities. A lot of people can say
Yeah.
this work has been life-changing, and that's amazing. And like you said, I don't think everyone is ready for that.
No.
Is in a place for it. And luckily there are other supports out there. And yeah, with the EMF, I mean, I remember with the AirPods when they had first come out, I was so excited. This is going to make my life much easier. And I ended up with horrific vertigo. And I went to go see a vertigo, and finally we figured out, no, it was they're microwaves. That's what it's using.
Yeah.
And same with something similar to the watch. My wrist was aching. So it's like, how can we detox while also restore and replenish ourselves and really think about mitochondrial health and the cell danger response and all of that. And like you said, I mean, for me, I moved to the desert. You moved to a cottage up north. I moved to the desert. It was the best thing I could have done. The nearest 5G tower was, I think it was like almost 15 kilometers away. So
that's why I went to Dominican, and I felt almost normal while I was there. And I would come home and things would come flushing back. And it's not even a perfect environment there because there's still must and mold and like Caribbean places. Obviously, they have better buildings for it. Like they're actually like cement and stuff. But I mean, like the furniture gets so musty. Like you can smell it.
Yeah.
And certain things.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
it's interesting, right? When other parts of you are supported, all of a sudden you can be with the mustiness and it doesn't impact your histamine bucket isn't overflowing. And it's the same. It's why I moved to Europe. Like I feel so much better here. My inflammation is down. It's environment does play a part.
Yeah. But again, now where I was in Dominican is now becoming a hub for 5G. Like, so it's like you can't stay away from it because it's like, so we have to get these things out of our body, get our body stronger, because now I can be around it. I can hold my phone. It's not like I think it's good and I try to minimize it. Like, but I had my phone on a pillow. Every pen I had a stylus because I couldn't even touch it. Like,
no, I've been there. And it's like, it's how do we get to a point of adaptation where we can still interact with it without living in a total fear response? Where can I go stay in a place with mold and not end up in the ER? It's really strengthening the body, because I don't at this moment in time think 5G is going anywhere, EMFs are going, or mold is going anywhere.
No, and mold is getting worse.
There's a correlation between EMFs and mold as we're learning.
Yeah.
So it's detoxing, replenishing, adapting, strengthening.
Yeah. But I don't know. An EMF specialist was talking about how babies are being born with more of the ability to adapt to them. So hopefully that's true, but more so the way their microbiome is changing, because like every toxin, there's a bug that can break it down. So radiation, all of that. It's like when we get depleted, like, so obviously you and I, we had that big gut component from like when we were much younger. So like not having that strong gut. And that was my first mantra, like was like heal your gut first. Like, well, I didn't make it up. I mean, there's obviously, it's been said, but that was like what I found. Because once I healed my gut from that first episode, all my neurological symptoms, they told me had MS, or I didn't have enough plaques for it to be MS, but the process was happening that created the plaques, right? But you have to have 5. I was like, okay, you have to have 5, right? Otherwise we just watch and wait. But not that I wanted the treatment they were offering anyways, if I had the 5, but like, it's interesting. And, these bugs though, like when you think of those little suckers, they are the ones that have learned how to adapt, and they're like getting smarter than ourselves. But now we know that some of that's been done in a lab, obviously, like where they're like our cells were outsmarting them. Like even it was way more rare when someone got Lyme that it turned into something crazy like this because it didn't know how to access our cells in the way that it did. And, there's a lot of evidence that people might call conspiracies, but that they're true after everything that's gone on. Like the book Bitten to me was like an aha moment where they talk about how the guy who discovered Lyme was then brought into this lab and paid all this money to teach it. And they thought it was, oh, so we can treat it better, teach it to access the cells different, add co-infections into these ticks, and then use them as a bioweapon. So it's,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're having, our bodies are having to do a lot for us. They're having to overtake bugs that literally are not supposed to be able to access our cells as much or damage our mitochondria as much, right? So
yeah,
but the way that you strengthen them, and you said something that resonated with me as well. You said, finding that authentic kind of love for yourself, like not thinking I need to do this for somebody to give me true love or and there was the time when someone just said like you're enough, and I was like falling face off, like I'm enough. Like we all think we have to do and not just be. And I think that is part of how we get over these nervous system underlying stuff to get our body stronger. So yeah, those types of messaging, I think, is what the world needs right now.
We forget, we forget we're human beings, we're not human doings.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are indigenous cultures where like just existing, right? Existing, opening up your eyes in the morning is more than enough.
Yeah.
And it's important for anyone going through anything right now to remember that. Anything past that is a bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still makes me again emotional in that, like hearing that. So I think that will resonate with a lot of people. But what if there's one thing that you learned through all this, and I mean that might be one of the major things, is just being like, what can you tell people listening now?
That I think our bodies are miraculous and they're on our side. There's this feeling that they're our enemy when we're really going through it. That's so far from the truth. And we are brilliant. And I think you brought up Chat GPT, and I think a lot of people are afraid of it to some regard, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have a nervous system. It still needs a human to operate it. Like we are like truly like trust in your body's brilliance and what it can do for us. I know there's a lot of scary things out there, but it's no match for us.
Yeah. And you can do the things that are supposed to help you, but if they're not helping you, there's the deeper things that we don't necessarily think about all the time. And how do people work with you? Like, do you do one-on-one or do you do groups? Like, how are you working?
Yeah, I do. I see folks one-on-one. I see couples as well. I co-facilitate a free Lyme mold chronic illness circle once a month. It's including family members. And and everyone is welcome. And like the other thing I wanted to say too, just to piggyback off of you, it's like if you feel like you've tried everything, please know you have not. There is so much out there. Like I look at my history of everything I've done and I still I haven't even done all of the things.
No.
Just trust it. From the Western world, from the Eastern world, sometimes you just feel like giving up, and please, like if you hear a message today, know that we're here. You're not alone in this. You can do this. We don't get sick in isolation. We do not heal in isolation. We heal in community.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And, like you said, having people's family join, because I'm always like, I mean, talk to your husband, your significant, because like it's very hard for people to understand these symptoms that haven't had them. It was hard for me even having it 10 years ago, but being so stable for 10 years, this was now 15 years ago. And then having people, and I was like, okay, I kind of remember that, but like, wait, how is that happening? Like, how does it bounce from there to there? That doesn't, and how does that like the one supplement make you do that when I gave you a drop? And then like, and then you're like living it. You're like, okay, universe, I didn't need this clear of like,
Yeah, isn't it funny? It'll
yeah,
humble you real quickly as a practitioner. Like something I'll question something the next day. I have the symptom. Like, okay, got it.
yeah.
Got it, got it, got
I
it.
know. I'm just
It's
trying to be like, okay, I don't need the,
yeah. I don't need
yeah, yeah.
please, as easy and tranquil as possible. 100%. And yeah, because this is really foreign. I remember when I was so sick. I mean, I couldn't get words out of my mouth. My brain fog was so severe. I could barely walk. And I remember my brain and my mouth not being able to work together.
Yeah,
And I would, yeah. I mean, my family had to I mean, like accept the fact that I just wasn't in a place of communication. And
yeah,
so being able to attend a group like this is really nice because you hear it from other people because it is very foreign. It's very odd when you're
yeah,
feeling okay and your loved one is not, and it's not clear what's causing it because sometimes doctors can't find that out. So that's why I really love and appreciate this group. But you can find me at Begin Within Today, beginwithintoday.com, and come say hi. I'd love to meet you.
yeah. I think everyone that's working with me should work with you at the same time. I think this is going to be the game changer that we need for, I mean, just those certain people to get above their baseline and just to keep improving more and
Well,
more.
maybe we do a workshop or something.
Yeah, we should. We
Yeah.
should because yeah, bringing the people together again because this was also recent for me where it turned on. Like I don't think I had the capacity that I could have done certain things, like even the big group things. Like I was one-on-one, I was helping people through their symptoms. I mean, I have like so many facets to my practice, but the one thing that I wanted to mention really quick was I was like kind of I was trained as a chiropractor and then I kind of was like, but this is the stuff, the inside the body, like the functional medicine. And now I'm back to how much the fascia and all the soft tissue helps as well. So, where we're talking about all those different things like mind, body, like they're all important. They all need to be touched on if you're going through this. So,
Literally touched on
yeah.
that there isn't one, and I want to say this loud and clear. There isn't one that's quote unquote more important
Yeah.
than the
Yeah.
other. It's literally all connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, this all really resonates. I'm sorry you went through all the symptoms, but I'm glad that you're on the other side shining the light. And I know
likewise,
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it all resonates. So we need to connect again and do something else together for sure, because honestly, our stories are almost identical. Like, and
yeah.
everyone has like, but you're telling yours. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you want to leave people with? You've already left them with like amazing tidbits and
Thank
honestly
you.
gave people hope already, but just anything else
Oh.
closing.
No, yeah, I just want to thank you for inviting me on. Thank you to anyone who's tuned in. And if you're listening, like I believe in your body's capability to heal. You deserve to heal. You are worthy of being in joy and thriving and feeling good.
So follow at Begin Within Today and get in touch. Amazing. Thanks so much.